the reason to talk about herd immunity when we discuss the pandemic is there's got to be some kind of all clear. There's got to be some return to normalcy, or we have to concede that life as we knew it is over. And that's a pretty high bar to clear, right? I don't think we want to go there. So the idea that this is temporary, we're going to work through it. It's difficult, it's painful, but we want to get back to normal. What are the options? One is a vaccine. Everybody rolls up their sleeve, everybody gets vaccinated, we're protected against coronavirus. Why is that a problem? Well, the most optimistic projections take us out 18 months. And if we're relying solely on a vaccine to protect us, it basically means whatever we're doing now, sheltering in place, that has to go on for at least a year and a half. And again, that's an optimistic projection. We've been trying to come up with an HIV vaccine for 30 years. No one thinks that coronavirus will be that hard, but until you have an effective vaccine, you don't know for sure how long it's going to take.
And previous attempts at SARS vaccines have been
unsuccessful to date. And so there's reason to be hopeful. There's been early progress, but 18 months is kind of the most hopeful projection. That's a very long time. And that leads us back to that scenario I hate, where some older people will die of something unrelated to coronavirus before ever again being able to hug their grandchildren because we're social distancing. That's terrible. I think of my 80-year-old parents. That's terrible. I think of an 89-year-old woman who told her story in the New York Times. That's terrible. So herd immunity is something we have to talk about because it is the more proximal alternative to an all clear. It's the way we can go back to the world. And the way to get to herd immunity is not to put people at risk, but to risk stratify the population. Who among us can afford to be exposed to this virus because it's overwhelmingly probable we'll have an unpleasant infection at worst, an asymptomatic bout of it at best, we'll get over it, we'll make antibodies. Again, we need data to know. How many have done this already? Who are they? And we need to go out in waves so that the people who are most likely to get over this without any adversity do it first, and the rates of transmission drop low, and then the next wave that's at slightly higher risk can get exposed. And if some numbers of us wind up getting sick enough to need the hospital bed's available for us.
And would this involve something like the old-fashioned measles parties where everyone sort of got together?
I've had colleagues write to me with what at first I thought were slightly callous, and then when I read them carefully actually seemed very clever and thoughtful ideas about exposing, for example, medical students who are graduating medical school and who first need to start working full-time in hospitals to coronavirus on purpose, controlling the dose so they don't get an overwhelming dose. One of the